Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Gopinath, Radha Gopinath, Shri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Shatrashta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Sharnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Shatrashta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samavita Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 8, Manifestation of Brahma from Vishnu. Text 22. Kalena sojaha purushayushabhi. Kalena sojaha purushayushabhi. Pravritta yogena viruda bodha. Pravritta yogena viruda bodha. Swayam tadantar hridayeva bhatam. Swayam tadantar hridayeva bhatam. Apashyata pashyatayan purvam. Na purvam. Apashyata pashyatayan purvam. Kalena soja purushayushabhi. Pravritta yogena viruda bodha. Swayam tadantar hridayeva bhatam. Apashyata pashyatayan purvam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. At the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge, and as a result, he could see in his heart the Supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. Purport. The Supreme Lord can be experienced only through the process of devotional service and not by one's personal endeavor in mental speculation. The age of Brahma is calculated in terms of divya years, which are distinct from the solar years of human beings. The divya years are calculated in Bhagavad Gita 8.17. Sahasra yuga paryantam aharyad brahmano viduhu. Brahma's one day is equal to 1,000 times the aggregate of the 4 yugas, calculated to be 4.3 million years. On that basis, Brahma meditated for 100 years before he could understand the supreme cause of all causes. And then he wrote the Brahma Samhita, which is approved and recognized by Lord Chaitanya, and in which he sings Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. One has to wait for the mercy of the Lord before one can render service unto him or know him as he is. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we're in a position in Srimad Bhagavatam where we're witnessing the predicament of Brahma. He's inside a universe which is pitch black, complete darkness, and he's on top of a lotus stem, which is actually a very big lotus stem. Sometimes we see pictures of Brahma and he's sitting on a lotus, and it's just like just a small lotus, just enough for him. But as we'll see in Brahma Samhita, this lotus stem actually represents Satyaloka, or Brahmaloka itself. So it's actually a very enormous lotus itself, this 1,000-petaled lotus that Brahma sits on. So he's there, he's sitting on the lotus, and he doesn't know what to do. So he's trying to play the part of an empirical philosopher or an empirical scientist. Does anyone know what empirical means? Empirical means to understand something through the use of your senses. So science is based on empiricism. Science means that in order for something to be scientifically verifiable or scientific, it should be verifiable, it should be observable, and it should be repeatable. So these 3 variables have to be there in science. So something in an experiment, for it to be scientifically acceptable, it should be observable with your senses, it should be verifiable by others as well, and it should be repeatable. So if you have the same conditions, the same temperature, the same time, whatever criteria is there in that experiment, you should be able to recreate the situations again. So this is the sort of mentality that we have. We tend to believe in things only if they're verifiable by our own senses. And if we can't see God or see something with our own eyes, then we don't believe in it. So Brahma, he's trying to teach us. He's the Acharya, of course, of our Sampradaya, and he's a pure devotee of Krishna. Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma actually meets with Krishna. Krishna shakes hands with him. He gets initiated to be a Brahmana, the original Brahmana, the original second-born, twice-born personality, Brahma, the original Brahmana. And he also gets instructed in the Chatur Shloki of Srimad Bhagavatam as well. So Brahma's position is very great. But he's teaching us that even such a great person as him, what does he do? He tries to understand his situation by climbing down that lotus stem. I remember seeing a TV serial an Indian TV serial. I forgot what it was. Maybe Vishnu, Dashavatar or something. There's a TV serial. And in that TV serial, there was Brahma, and he had these paper mache heads. And he was sitting on top of this lotus, and then he decided to investigate his situation empirically with his senses. So he decided to climb down this lotus stem, which is just a big rope, a green rope. And he tried to climb down, and he kept climbing down, and he just couldn't get to the end of it. So he didn't know, he didn't want to keep coming down, he didn't know what's there. So then he just, I know at the top there's a lotus, let me just go back up to that lotus. So he went back up there. So we see demoniac persons like Hiranyakashipu. He's also a very empirical person as well. He wants to see Krishna. He wants to see Lord Nrsimha with his own eyes. Is he in this pillar? Is he there? Is he there? Of course, Prahlad Maharaj is seeing him through his devotion. Right? That's what Brahma Samhita says. That when your eyes are tinged with the salve of love, then you can see Krishna. But we try to see Krishna without qualification. And we see in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna bestows upon Arjuna divine vision to be able to see his Virat Rupa form. Which is a downgrade, but still, to see any form of Krishna, we need qualification, we need the empowerment of Krishna. So, my Guru Maharaj explains that Hiranyakashipu was trying to see Krishna and capture Krishna with his own eyes, but it wasn't until Lord Nrsimha broke out of the pillar. And when he broke out of the pillar, it's not like everyone could see him. First of all, it's explained there was a very loud, thunderous sound which came. And when Hiranyakashipu heard that sound, then he could realize that the personality which is coming out of this pillar is not an ordinary person. This person must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Some extraordinary person is coming. So he explains that we can appreciate Krishna, we can begin to appreciate Krishna not by directly seeing him, but by hearing about him. Another example which can be stated in this regard is at the start of the Bhagavad Gita. Sa gosho datarashranam hridayani vyadarayat nabascha prithivim chaiva sashabdastumalo bhavat. It's explained that when all the soldiers were blowing their conch shells, heralding, or no, not heralding, but showing that the war, demonstrating that the war was about to start. But then, tata shvetai hayer yukte mahatim syandane stito. At that time, Arjuna and Krishna, situated on their chariot, which was drawn by white horses, what do? Divyao shankau pradadmatu. They sounded their transcendental conch shells. And when the enemy soldiers heard the sound which is coming from these transcendental conch shells, they could understand that the person that they're contending with, the person that they're fighting in this war, especially Krishna blowing his Panchajanya, and then the Pandavas blowing their respective conch shells, like the Devadatta, the Pondra, the Sugosha, Manipushpako of Nakula and Sahadev. These conch shells, it's explained, they have names. That means they're personalities. They're actually transcendental personalities. The Pandavas, Lord Krishna, they're also all transcendental personalities as well. So when the enemy soldiers heard this transcendental vibration, Sanjaya is telling to Dhritarashtra, Hridayani vidharayat. Hrid, the heart of the enemy soldiers, started to shake, it started to rattle. Oh no, we can appreciate Krishna by the sound which is coming out of his conch shell. So in that way, first of all, we need to hear. And that is exactly what Brahma is doing. It's explained here that Brahma meditated for 100 of his years, and as a result, in his heart, he could see the Supreme, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. So we see also Narada Muni, Narada boy, as Srila Prabhupada explains, he got the darshan of Krishna within his heart. And then Krishna went away. And then what did Narada boy try to do? He tried to again go back in his meditation. He tried to see the form of Vishnu again. But then Narada Muni, Narada boy, appreciated Krishna's presence through the Akashvani, through the Krishna speaking to him. And Krishna said, Narad boy, in this lifetime, you'll not be able to see me again. I only showed you once in this lifetime. Now you practice devotional service, you practice the path of bhakti, you become a pure devotee, and that way you'll be able to constantly see me as well. So this is the appreciation that we can have of Krishna before we come to the stage of pure devotion where our eyes actually tinge with the salve of love. We have to develop our association and our relationship with Krishna through the sound vibration. And as we'll see today, because Srila Prabhupada here in the purport, he's actually quoting the Brahma Samhita. He says, on that basis, Brahma meditated for 100 years before he could understand the supreme cause of all causes, and then he wrote the Brahma Samhita. Now, many times when we think of Brahma Samhita, we just think of a few key verses, like the verses that we sing in the morning. Venum kvanantam ravinda dalayataksham ananda chinmaya rasa pratibhavitabhis. These verses. But Brahma Samhita is very extensive, and it's very valuable. I think it was Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I was listening a long time ago, and he was mentioning that Srila Prabhupada mentioned to him that you should learn some of the, if you want to preach very nicely, you should learn key verses. Key verses from the Bhagavad Gita. Key verses also includes the Brahma Samhita verses as well. Brahma Samhita verses are the essence of the Bhagavad philosophy. They're the essence of Vedanta. Brahma is well versed in the 4 Vedas. But this is something that he composed spontaneously upon being empowered by Krishna, upon seeing Krishna's form and seeing the transcendental situation in Vaikuntha. He got the darshan of Goloka. He saw the cowherd boys, he saw the gopis, he saw the Chintamani pathways in Goloka. He saw all this, and then he's speaking the Vedanta, the conclusion of Vedic knowledge. Just like we see Dhruva Maharaj or Prahlad Maharaj. Although they were pure devotees, they are pure devotees, still, in order to glorify Krishna, they required Krishna's blessings. Right? Dhruva Maharaj, he required Vishnu's conch shell to be touched on his head, and Prahlad Maharaj, he was blessed by Lord Nrsimha kara, tava kara, kamalavare, placed his hand on Prahlad Maharaj's head, and then they began glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the exact same situation with Brahma as well. So I thought that today we could read through a little bit of Brahma Samhita, not just the verses, the main bulk of the Brahma Samhita, but actually what's happening before and what happens after, because we usually don't encounter this. And the purports here are given by Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Very lofty purports, very hard to understand sometimes. But still, we can go through it, because this is the topic which is being discussed. Brahma Samhita, the context of Brahma Samhita is how the universe was created, then how Brahma was born, then how Brahma got enlightened by meditating on Krishna, then the actual Brahma Samhita prayers itself, and then at the end of the Brahma Samhita, Krishna imparts onto Brahma 5 seed verses, which is something we're going to try and discuss today if we have time. So just like Brahma got the 4 seed verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the form of Chaturshloki, he also got, I think it's 5 other verses right at the end. These are the last 5 verses of the 5th chapter of the Brahma Samhita, which is the only chapter of the Brahma Samhita we have. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he went to South India, he was able to recover 2 books. Or rather, he recovered 2 books. If he wanted to, he could get many more. But he recovered 2 books. One is the Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, and the other one is Bilvamangal Thakur's, Leela Shuka's Krishna Karanamrita, which Srila Prabhupada says these 2 are very key Vaishnava literatures. So, this is actually from verse 13 of Brahma Samhita. And it's describing the creation of the universes which are coming out of the pores, the bodily pores of Mahavishnu. Right? Now, listen to this verse. The spiritual seeds of Sankarshan Now the Sanskrit word for these tiny transcendental universes which are coming from the body of Mahavishnu, the Sanskrit word is bijam. Or rather, sorry, it's not bijam, it's andani. Andani means eggs. So it's been translated as eggs. It's also been translated as sperm. So the translation for this verse 13 of Brahma Samhita is, the spiritual seeds of Sankarshan, which are these tiny universes coming out of his pores, existing in the pores of the skin of Mahavishnu, are born as so many golden sperms. So these tiny universes which are coming out of the pores of Mahavishnu, they're golden in color and they're compared to sperms. These sperms are covered with 5 great elements. So in the purport it's explained, when those golden sperms coming out from the exhalation of Mahavishnu entered into the unlimited accommodating chamber of limited potency Maya, they became enlarged. So what does that mean? We see in the generally when conception happens, the sperm from the Purusha enters into the egg in the womb, right? The living entity. Srimad Bhagavatam explains, Karmana Deva Netrina. It's happening under the superintendence of the higher authorities in the universe, like the demigods. They are placing the soul, the living, conscious, sentient soul, into that particle of sperm, which is then taking shelter of the womb and the egg. And then what happens? This transcendental soul has added to it material elements, which make up the body. So elements like earth, fire, air, water, ether, and then mind, intelligence, false ego, these things are covering the soul. In the same way, the universes are created as well. So these universes which are coming out of Mahavishnu, they're just like the soul. They're consisting of all the individual souls which are present in a particular universe. This universal golden sperm, it's explained in Brahma Samhita, gets covered by the womb of the external energy of Maya. And then it is covered by the material elements of the Mahatattva, and in that way, the body of the universe grows. Just like our body grows, because it gets covered up by elements, the 5 elements, Panchamahabhuta, and it grows into a bigger size. When it's sufficiently grown, it takes birth. We take birth. Our material body takes birth. Similarly, the transcendental seed of Mahavishnu gets implanted into the womb of the material energy, the external energy Maya, and that transcendental seed gets covered up by the 24 elements of the Mahatattva. And then the universe grows in that way. So that's the situation. Then we read on in Brahma Samhita, so I'm just covering some key verses. So this is text 18 of the Brahma Samhita. When Vishnu, lying in the ocean of milk, wills to create this universe, a golden lotus springs from his navel pit. So now we're coming to the situation inside each universe. So you can imagine Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, he's lying at the bottom of the universe, and from his navel is coming a lotus stem. The golden lotus, and in the purport explained, gold here refers to the dim reflection of pure cognition. It's explained, tamasima jyotirgama. Don't go towards the darkness, go towards the light. Darkness represents ignorance, and light represents knowledge. Just like in Back to Godhead magazine, it says, right? What is that line that says? Nescience. Godhead is light, nescience is darkness. Right? So that's the line which is given. So that's coming from tamasima jyotirgama. So go towards the light, which represents knowledge. Now that lotus stem is golden in color. It's very bright and effulgent in color. And Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur is explaining that gold refers to the dim reflection of pure cognition, which means it refers to the reflection of pure consciousness and cognition. It's directly connected to Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and that stem is like full knowledge, full knowledge of this universe, what's happening here. So when Vishnu, lying in the ocean of milk, from his navel pit comes the golden lotus. The golden lotus with its stem is the abode of Brahma, representing Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. So at the top, the lotus, that represents Satyaloka, the highest planetary system within this universe, and consequently the other 13 planetary systems which are there, they are forming themselves respectively in their vertical positions in the universe on that stem as a skeleton. Okay? So that's that. And then it says, this is a nice one. This is text 21. The same jiva. Now this is our relationship with Krishna, with Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, in relation to that lotus stem. The same jiva is eternal and is for eternity and without a beginning joined to the Supreme Lord by a tie of eternal kinship. So we're always eternally connected to Krishna by a bondage, a tie of bondage of eternal kinship. He's transcendental spiritual potency. You can imagine this lotus stem to be like the umbilical cord. Just like when a baby comes out when the baby is delivered, there's still the umbilical cord which is attached to the baby's navel. And then what do the doctors do? They cut the umbilical cord. When the baby is within the womb of the mother, that umbilical cord is supplying the necessary nutrients and ingredients so that the life of the child can be sustained within the womb. So in the same way, this lotus stem, which is coming out from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and we are all attached to that lotus stem because all the 14 planetary systems are created in line with that lotus stem, in connection with that lotus stem. The lotus at the top is Brahmaloka, is Satyaloka. So all the living entities which are taking birth on these 14 planetary systems, they are connected and sustained through the lotus stem which is coming out from the body of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Just like the mother sustains the life of her baby by supplying nutrients through the umbilical cord. So there's a nice verse in relation to that. Ya karnarna vajale bhajati smayoga nidram anantam jagatanda saromakupa adhara shaktim avalambya param swamurtim. So in Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma says that Vishnu is the Adhar Shakti, is providing the Adhar Shakti, the potency of sustenance. And how is he doing that? According to Brahma Samhita, he's doing that through the lotus stem. Everything is connected in the universe to Krishna through this lotus stem, which is coming out of his navel, of the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Then text 22 says, the divine lotus which springs from the navel pit of Vishnu is in every way related by the spiritual tie with all souls, and is the origin of the four-faced Brahma, well versed in the Vedas. So that shows that the lotus stem which is coming from the navel pit of Vishnu is a spiritual tie with all the souls which have taken birth within this universe. So that's our, you can say, like physical relationship with Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Then this verse explains why Brahma, so this is our situation right now in Srimad Bhagavatam, why does Brahma want to perform an action of creation? Why does he actually have the desire to create? So it's explained in Brahma Samhita, on coming out of the lotus, Brahma is Swayambhu, self-born from the lotus navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. On coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to the act of creation. Under the impulse of previous impressions, but he could see nothing but darkness in every creation. So Brahma Samhita is explaining that Brahma wanted to create, he had the urge to create. Why? Because of previous impressions from the previous kalpa. And the purport is interesting. It says, Brahma's impulse for creation arises solely from his previous impressions. All jivas get their nature conformably to their previous impressions from previous births according to their activity. It is called the unseen, or the result of one's previous deeds. His natural impulse is formed according to the nature of the deeds done by him in the previous kalpa, or the previous day of Brahma. Some of the eligible jivas also attain to the office of Brahma in this way. So we understand that you can become, or there's two different types of Brahmas, potentially. One is a jiva, who has followed the varnashram system perfectly, without any deviation, any fault, performed a certain amount of yagyas perfectly for 100 consecutive births or something like that. I don't know exactly what it is. But if a jiva is able to do that, the jiva gets qualified to attain the post of Brahma. If there's no jiva who has that qualification, then Brahma comes as an avatar of Krishna himself. So Brahma himself is Krishna. Brahma himself comes. But if it's a jiva, that jiva has a desire to create because of impressions from previous kalpas. So it's explained in Bhagavad Gita at the start of 3rd chapter, Nahi Kshanamapi Jatu Tishtati Akarmakrid. Karete hi avashya karma sarva prakritir jair gune. That for the soul always has to act. It's being impelled and propelled by the modes of material nature. So whatever, just like how after we die, right, we die with a certain consciousness, and when we take birth in the next life, we carry that same impression and that same consciousness into the next life, because our subtle body goes with us into the next life. So in the same way, at the end of the cosmic annihilation, whatever your consciousness was like, that impression of the consciousness gets stored within the body of Mahavishnu, and then when the universe is created again, when the souls are again put into activity, then again, one continues with one's actions according to how he had cultivated his consciousness in the previous day of Brahma. So in this way, Brahma Samhita explains, that's how Brahma is propelled to act. Because he's molded his consciousness in such a way in his previous birth that he has the desire to create and to control. The goddess of learning, Saraswati, the divine consort of the Supreme Lord. So Brahma has two wives. Saraswati is one, the goddess of learning. Another one of Brahma's wives are actually Gayatri. So the Gayatri mantra, so she's a personality as well. Now let's explain that both of these wives of Brahma, they're actually originally transcendental personalities residing in the spiritual world. But they take on mundane attributes to become the wives of Brahma when he actually takes birth from Vishnu. So the goddess of learning, who is a transcendental personality, Saraswati, the divine consort of the Supreme Lord, said to Brahma, who saw nothing but gloom in all directions. He saw darkness, he didn't know what was going on. "O Brahma, this mantra will surely fulfill all your heart's desires." And this mantra, which I won't say, but you can read it yourself. It's in text 24 of Brahma Samhita. This is the Gopal Gayatri mantra. So when those devotees who are second initiated, as you know, we actually get 7 mantras from the Guru at the time of second initiation. The Gopal Gayatri mantra is the 6th of the 7 mantras. The first mantra is the Brahma Gayatri mantra, which is referring to the Brahman manifestation of Krishna. The next 2 mantras are referring to the Guru, so that's 3 mantras so far. And then the next 2 mantras after that refer to Lord Chaitanya, and the last 2 mantras refer to Krishna himself. So the second last one, so the 6th Gayatri mantra, is referred to the Gopal Gayatri mantra, and that is the mantra which Lord Brahma got directly from Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and the consort of the Supreme Lord. And generally we hear, right, that to chant the Gayatri mantra, you need some sort of qualification. If you're not qualified, then it has an adverse effect, chanting the Gayatri mantra. So the Gayatri mantra is given to people who are qualified in that they have cultivated the mode of goodness, developed some sort of transcendental divine qualities, and then they are qualified to chant the Gayatri mantra. If someone who's unqualified chants the Gayatri mantra, then the adverse effect comes. And that is explained in the purport. It says that one aspect is that it tends to make the pure soul run after the all-attractive Sri Krishna, the Lord of Gokul, and the divine milkmaids. So this is the positive effect of the Gayatri Mantra. It makes the soul run after the all-attractive Krishna. So this is the original effect of the Gayatri Mantra. It makes one run after Krishna. The adverse effect of the Gayatri Mantra is this. In the case of the devotee who is not of unmixed aptitude, that means in the case of a devotee who is not pure in his or her motivations, but is mixed, means he's a karma mishra bhakta or a jnana mishra bhakta or a yoga mishra bhakta. If such a devotee chants the Gayatri Mantra, then this super excellent mantra fulfills his heart's desires also. So if one has material desires within one's heart, and one chants the Gayatri Mantra, then the Gayatri Mantra fulfills one's material desires. Of course, this is not the desired effect that we want. But if one is pure, and if one chants the Gayatri Mantra, then it makes the soul run after the all-attractive Krishna. So what is the goddess Saraswati saying to Lord Brahma? She's saying, "O Brahma, do thou practice spiritual association by means of this mantra, then all your heart's desires will be fulfilled." In other words, you'll be able to create, and you'll be able to understand the situation. Now I'm going to explain to you Brahma's meditation. So it says here, at the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete. This is today's verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. Now we hear, in one instance, that Brahma heard the sound of the Garbhodaka waves, right, crashing against the lotus, and they formed a sound called tapa. And this sound, again it's sound, inspired Brahma to perform tapasya, to perform meditation. Now the meditation which Brahma performed was on this Gopal Gayatri Mantra. So the mantra that Brahma was actually meditating on top of that lotus stem for 100 years, 100 celestial years, was the Gopal Gayatri Mantra. And this is what he saw in his meditation. Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural acts for Krishna in Goloka for a long time, for 100 years. His meditation ran thus. So this is Brahma's meditation for 100 years. There exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals, augmented by millions of filaments, in the transcendental land of Goloka. On its whorl, the center part, there exists a great divine throne on which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of the eternal effulgence of transcendental bliss, playing on his divine flute resonant with the divine sound of his lotus mouth. Krishna is worshipped by his amorous milkmaids with their respective subjective portions and extensions, also by his external energy, who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities. So in Brahma's meditation for 100 years, as he's chanting the Gopal Gayatri Mantra, he's getting a vision of the planet of Golok Vrindavan, which is shaped like 1,000-petaled transcendental lotus, which has thousands of filaments inside, thousands of different sectors inside in Golok. And he's seeing in that planet, Krishna is seated on a golden throne, and he's being worshipped by the milkmaids in Vrindavan. And he's seeing that the external energy, Maya, she's actually sitting outside of this lotus. So the external energy does not touch the internal energy in that way. So Krishna never directly associates with the external energy. He does so through his expansion as Lord Shiva. Kshiram yata dadivikar vishesha yogad. Sanjayate nahi tata pritagasteto. Ya shambhutam apita tata samupayitikarya govindam adipurusham tamam bhajami. Krishna touches or comes in contact with the external energy through his expansion as Shambhu, through his expansion as Lord Shiva, not directly as Krishna. So this is the meditation that Brahma was envisioning as he was meditating on the Gopal Gayatri Mantra for 100 years. So this is just to give some context of Brahma's meditation. Now, Brahma's initiation. So you can see that picture there. that we have on the wall, we can see that Brahma is sitting on top of the lotus stem. The universe is dark. He's just finished his meditation. And then Krishna is coming and he's playing his flute. And that flute sound is actually entering into the ears of Brahma. So we have that nice picture there. So this is the verse that corresponds to it. Then Gayatri, the mother of the Vedas, being made manifest, imparted the divine sound of the flute of Sri Krishna. It entered into the lotus mouth of Brahma through his 8 ear holes. So the flute sound went into the 8 ear holes of Brahma. He has 4 heads, and it went into his mouth. The lotus-born Brahma, having received the Gayatri, sprung from the flute song of Sri Krishna, attained the status of twice-born, having been initiated by the Supreme Godhead himself. So, after Brahma meditated, Krishna appeared. He initiated Brahma into becoming the first Brahmana by receiving the initiation. Now, in the purport, it's explained that this flute sound which came out of Krishna's flute and entered into the ears of Brahma, that's known as the Kama Gayatri mantra. So in these 7 Gayatri mantras that we chant when we're second initiated, the last Gayatri mantra, the 7th one, is known as the Kama Gayatri mantra. And it's explained that this Gayatri mantra is the pinnacle of all Gayatri mantras, the Kama Gayatri mantra. So first of all, Brahma meditated on the Gopal Gayatri mantra, and then Krishna appeared, and Krishna's flute sound, he initiated Brahma through the Kama Gayatri mantra, and he became a Brahmana. Then, Brahma Samhita explains that Brahma started to being enlightened and being initiated by Krishna himself. Brahma started his recitation of the Brahma Samhita. So that's the context behind how Brahma starts his Brahma Samhita, by the verse Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha Lakshavriteshu Surabhira Bhupalyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. There's 2 verses in Brahma Samhita which directly refer to Lord Brahma. The first one is Yasyeka Nishvasita Kalamathavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagatandanata Vishnur Mahan Yasya Kala Vishesho Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Brahma and the other lords of the mundane world, so the word is Jagat Anda Nata. Jagat Anda refers to the universe, Nata means the masters. So it's explained that the 2 masters are Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. So this verse is directly referring to him. They remain alive so long as the duration of 1 exhalation of Mahavishnu. And this verse is saying from Brahma Samhita that this gigantic Mahavishnu, from whose bodily pores all these golden universes are coming, he's just a Kala Vishesha. He's just a tiny fragment of the original Krishna in Golok Vrindavan. Therefore, Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Therefore, I worship Govinda. Because Mahavishnu is just a tiny fragment of Krishna himself. So that shows us Brahma's position in relation to not only Mahavishnu, but also Krishna in Golok Vrindavan. And something interesting is explained. Brahma and Lord Shiva, they have 5 extra qualities than the Jivas. We know that. Nectar Devotion says the Jivas have 50 qualities. Krishna has 64. Brahma and Lord Shiva have 50 qualities of the Jiva, plus they have an extra 5 qualities. Lord Shiva, because he's more of a manifestation of Krishna, he's more intimately or transcendentally, you could say, empowered by Krishna than Lord Brahma. Because Brahma is a Jiva, he's Jiva Tattva, whereas Shiva, he is more transcendental to Brahma. He's in a Tattva, he's in a category by himself. Shiva has these extra 5 qualities in completeness, whereas Brahma has the extra 5 qualities from 51 to 55, in relative amounts. So in that way, there's a distinction between Brahma and Shiva in terms of how much qualities they have, those 5 extra qualities. Brahma has these qualities to a lesser degree, and Shiva has these qualities to completeness, in completeness. The second verse in Brahma Samhita, which directly refers to Lord Brahma, is the very next verse from Yasyeka Nishvasita. It's Basvanyatashma Sakaleshu Nijeshu Teju Swiyam Kiyat Prakatayati Apitadvadatra Brahmaya Esha Jagatanda Vidanakarta Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Now you can just see that Brahma himself is speaking about himself. And he's saying, I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom the separated subjective portion Brahma receives his power for the regulation of the mundane world, just as the sun manifests some portion of his own light in the effulgent gems that bear the names Suryakanta. We'll finish with this verse. Today we don't have time to talk about the last 5 instructions, the seed verses that Krishna gave to Brahma. But I'll just summarize this verse. So what it's saying, because in today's verse it's saying that he could see the Supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. So it's only when Krishna empowers us that we can understand Krishna, and that we have the bodily strength, the intelligence to be able to do anything. And we see that in the case of Arjuna. He has that practical realization. After Krishna has left, his famous Gandiva, he can no longer wield it properly. Right? The cowherd men, they were able to overpower someone like Arjuna. And he realizes, as he comes to that realization, that whatever I was doing, defeating Lord Shiva, fighting with all these demigods and all these demons, it was only through the empowerment of Lord Krishna. So, apparently there are certain gemstones, they're known as Suryakanta. And these gemstones, Suryakanta, they give off very bright effulgence. But they don't do that by themselves, in of themselves. They do that when they're empowered by the rays of the sun. So it's like you've seen glow-in-the-dark things, right? Like glow-in-the-dark lights or toys or whatever. First of all, you have to put that glow-in-the-dark object in the sun. And throughout the daytime, the sun rays hit that glow-in-the-dark object, and it gets charged. And so at nighttime, it gives off its light. So it's able to do that by the empowerment of the sun. In the same way, these Suryakanta gems, they're able to shine, give off effulgence, because they've been invested with the power of the sun. In the same way, Brahma is able to carry out his functions of creation because he's been invested by the potency of Lord Krishna. So today I was able to give a context of how Brahma Samhita was spoken by Brahma, about how he meditated, what he meditated on, what he saw, and how he was initiated. And today we discussed about 2 verses which directly refers to Lord Brahma. And I also started the class by explaining about sorry, what is? Oh, yes, the empirical. That we can't understand Krishna through our senses, but we can begin to appreciate Krishna through sound vibration. And that's how Brahma was able to glorify Krishna, because he heard the flute sound from Krishna's flute.